So today's video is a short summary of what a risk-based test technique is. So risk itself is an event that could lead to a negative outcome, either on a product, a software, or a project. But specifically for a software testing, we are more concerned for the product risk. So this video is centered around risk that is specific to a software or product. So first of all, we need to understand what are the different steps that we use to implement or this risk technique. So first of all, we have the risk identification. What is a risk identification? So this is where we actually identify the risk within the requirements or feature. Okay, so this is where cross teams would identify what the different risks are. And secondly, we have the risk analysis. So this is where we'd measure the levels of each of the risks, or in some cases, they can be grouped into separate categories. So either based on the level of the risks that they are. And then lastly, we have the risk planning and monitoring. So once we've established the risk levels and understand the impact, then we can plan on how we mitigate those risks. So this could be based on example, could be prioritizing our testing. An example could be the type of testing we carry out, the efforts required for those tests. It could also even be the test types we might use or the test technique we might use. Okay, so that obviously the higher the level of risk, the more effort and the more level of test will be required to mitigate those risks from becoming an actual event. Okay, so these are the main steps. So down at the bottom is just a table that gives us a brief illustration of what a typical low level risk is. So after they've carried out those risk identification, analysis, and planning activities, the next step, obviously, from a tester's perspective, or in most cases, the test manager would have a list of, okay, these are the different areas of the products that we need to test, and this is the level of risks, the impact, and severity. So an example here is an e-commerce system. So where you have 4 features that needs to be tested. So the login feature, the recommend product feature, the product selection, and payment type. And then to the right, you have the impact column, you have the severity and the risk level. So the impacts are basically the impact on the product or the business. So if something was to go wrong, what would be the level of impact on the business? That's what the impact stands for. And severity stands for the likelihood of something going wrong. So what's the likelihood of a software failure, or the likelihood of this feature to fail in production? Or so that's what the severity stands for. And the risk level is basically a calculation of or a multiplication of the impact and severity for each risk. So for example, the first login risk or feature on the row 1 has an impact of 3, severity of 2, and then when you multiply the impact and severity, the risk level becomes 6. And same for the recommended product and the other risks. So the risk level is basically a multiplication of the impact and the severity. And the way this has been sort of worked out is the lower the number, the less the risks. So the numbers are from 1 to 3. So the impact and severity are from numbers 1 to 3. So the lower the number, the lower the risk. The higher the number, the higher the risk. So as you can see with the risk levels, we have some that are really high, like the 6-ish, 6 for login and 6 for payment type. We have some that are really low, like 2 for recommend product and 2 for product selection. So if we were to test this or to plan the testing of these based on the risks we've identified here, we would obviously put more effort into testing the login feature and the payment type because the risk level is higher based on our results here. Okay, and the recommend product and product selection, we won't need to expend as much effort on those because the risk level is lower. Okay, and also means that we obviously have to prioritize the higher risk items like the login and payment type over the lower risk items. So guys, this is a brief overview of what a risk-based technique is all about. So first of all, the activity is carried out. This is normally done across a team. So you have a project team. We have cross teams that will come together and they'll work together to identify what these risk areas are for that product, and then devise a kind of plan that they would use and adopt in their testing, especially from a testing perspective. And then a risk table such as the one here will be created, especially by the testing, where they would obviously have their level of risk identified based on each areas that they're testing. And normally different organizations have their own format that they would use. Some, rather than have the numbers as impact or severity, they might just have it as a qualitative measure where they would have a high, medium, low, rather than 1 to 3 or something like that. Okay, but the whole point is just to help them identify which are the higher risk and to be able to prioritize those in their testing. Okay guys, this is a short quiz just for you guys to try out. It's also a way of helping us to enforce our learning and to ensure that we understand some of the concepts that has been explained in the previous slide. So please have a go at these questions and drop your answers in the comment section.